Facebook because, sometimes it might be working now. Who knows?
Okay, well Tracy, because I don't have host anymore. But yeah, let's try it.
Yeah, I'm doing it over and over just until it finally
Might be worth another
clicks in.
attempt to try and get it on Facebook because, sometimes it might be working now. Who knows?
Okay,
Yeah, I'm
Tracy,
over and over and over, just trying to hope it works.
but yeah, let's try it.
Yeah, I'm doing it over and over just until it finally
Might be worth another
clicks in.
attempt to try and get it on Facebook because,
Is anyone else hearing that over and over again?
Yeah, we're getting a feedback loop of some sort.
Yeah, I'm over and over and over, just trying to hope it works.
But yeah, let's try it.
I mean, I thoroughly enjoy everyone's voice. It's just funny. Is anyone else hearing that over and over again?
Yeah, we're getting a feedback loop of some sort.
Yeah, I'm over and over, just trying to hope it works.
But yeah, let's try it.
It's like when the hiccups finally go away. And waiting just
I'm sorry, but I needed this comic relief. Yeah, I miss Joy's hiccuping computer. I miss Primrose's talk, the way she talks on the computer.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You got this.
Okay, Elizabeth, I have an update and we are live.
Great, thank you. So
Right.
what do we know?
Okay, for the school that we were talking about, they are slowly coming back up. They're, in fact, they're back up, is what she
Yeah.
said. They're back up and running as far as AC goes. I think they have 1 or 2 classrooms that they've identified where the AC is down, but they're connected to other rooms by a pod. They've opened up for airflow and the teacher can work within the pod because the other rooms, it's set up like there's 4 rooms. And they can open it up for the airflow within the pod, and the teacher can work in the pod, and she's finding places for the teachers to work on campus. But she said the major issue, campus wide, they're back up.
Okay, thank you for that information.
Okay.
Can I just ask though, is there a threshold? Oh, I mean, I guess I heard that there isn't a threshold. So how do we make the determination if Monday, if over the weekend we have bad storms again too, and we find this?
We've been working with each principal as they call in to determine, because really you have to analyze the whole situation and see how long it's going to take to get back up and
Right. So
buildings are.
So at this point, it's been about 3 hours that the folks have been there without air conditioning. So I just wonder when we get to the point where we say, you know what, go work remotely because you can. Do we get to that point?
look at that.
We're going to look into that and
Okay.
after each situation.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would, well, when you find your answer, would you please let me know so that I can let our folks know?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. Do you want our team roll call here?
Sure.
All right. We have Deb Muller, Kevin Penley, Amber Ryan, Rachel Hazel, Mark West, Angie Polite, John Cash, Paul Narig, and Christina Raimundo is also on, and she is going to be coming in physically into the room a little bit later, but I know she was straddling 2 meetings, so if she's not completely logged on yet, she will be.
Okay. We have myself, Tracy Butler, Josh Leclerc, Joy Crome, Amy Hawkins, Barbara Hoffman, Beth Friedel, Bill Morrison, David Tyndall, Lakita Howard, Matt Lawrence, Paulette McKibben-Shed, Valerie Jessup, and Yvette Lascano.
Okay. All right. Was there anything that you wanted to start with, or do you
I
want?
think we would just like to see your response to the counter that we gave yesterday.
Okay. I do have some more information that I want to share. I spent some time doing some research as far as how we came to the reopening plan and the safety protocols that are within the reopening plan. And so Mr. Aiken did provide me with a great deal of information as far as the history of that goes. So I would like to share that, and then I can go through our response to the counter. I did ask Mr. Aiken specifically for how, as far as where did those protocols that are within the reopening plan, where did they come from? And how closely are they aligned with CDC guidelines, which I have copies of both the CDC guidelines and the American Association of Pediatrics guidelines. And what he said was there was, as part of the reopening committee, and from what I understand and what I was a part of, there were there was one large committee that was a reopening committee, and then there were several breakouts of those that addressed different sections of the reopening plan. And for the health and safety part of the reopening plan, he said there was a committee that was made up of himself, school district, his people within his office, people within AFSCME and the health department, and a few doctors were also on that committee. So we had the health department, doctors, Dr. Raimundo just walked in as well. Health department, doctors, his office, the safety committee were all part of that smaller committee. And then all of the recommendations were brought back for vetting to the larger reopening committee. And when it came to what specific guidelines are we going to use as far as the health and safety, social distancing, using the plexiglass, the mask policies, they used both the CDC and the American Association of Pediatrics guidelines that were put out for schools, which I have copies of both. And they went through each of those, and all of the guidelines that were used were pulled from those 2 documents. And so when I said to Mr. Aiken, what is specifically talking about the language, do we use reopening plan language or do we use CDC language, the CDC guideline language? While they're very, very similar, he said they're not exact, and the CDC language, he said, changes very frequently, and that there are parts of our reopening plan language, for instance, and he used the specific example of the plexiglass dividers that have been purchased for students that are more, I don't want to say more restrictive because I don't look at it that way, but are more that go above what the CDC would recommend, I guess. And so the concern with putting in specifically that only following the CDC guidelines is there are pieces that we use that are not, that are above what the CDC recommends. And so that is where that reopening language came from, was from that specific committee and the reopening committee. Did you have questions about that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how to frame them. So to paraphrase or paraphrase. So I believe that you said that basically a committee was convened with that included officials from the Department of Health and some knowledgeable others, and they took a look at resources that were available, which included the CDC guidelines and the American Association of Pediatrics. They went through them. They chose or selected bits and pieces from each of those guidelines and then included those into the reopening plan. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. So I also heard you say that in certain circumstances, the district go above and beyond some of these requirements as evidenced by the plexiglass dividers. Is that accurate?
That was one example that he
Okay,
gave.
all right,
Yeah.
all right. So I wonder are there certain circumstances where the district has made choices to go to the lesser of the recommendations?
There are no recommendations that the district has made that are not within one of those two documents. Is that what, like, did we decide we want to, within our reopening plan, go with one of the two documents? No, there's not.
I'm just taking notes real quick.
Okay.
So no recommendations in the plan that are not within the
That fall outside
CDC,
of,
the CDC
right.
guidelines or the, okay. So
Below the level of expectation of one of these two.
I think people want to know, what are we going to do in the classroom? How many feet apart are kids in the classroom?
Yep, that's true, but I want to just follow up. I'm writing, taking more notes, and that's true. We want to go to that for sure. But I want to ask this other question. So we're following the CDC guidelines. We're implementing guidance from the AAP, American Academy of Pediatrics. That's great because they are the experts in those areas. But with that understanding, then I wonder why we wouldn't also follow the guidance from the FCAAP that states we shouldn't be reconvening until we have 14 days at 5% or less. Is there a consideration for that guidance from the FCAAP?
That does not fall within our executive order or so no, that was not one of the documents that they considered with the reopening plan. Let me just say that. The two specific documents that were considered when writing this reopening plan were CDC guidelines and the American Association of Pediatrics.
But if the group, the American Association for Pediatrics, are the authors of that document, wouldn't any subsequent official guidance from that same group be given the same level of consideration when we're looking to bring our folks back?
I was not.
So, and so what I heard you also say was that the CDC guidelines change frequently. So because those change frequently, I thought when we were talking in that time frame, maybe that was one of the reasons why you went with the other document. But what I know is our reopening plan also changes frequently, and we're supposed to be flexible and go along with those changes. So are we going to be flexible only in the purposes of following the reopening plan? Or are we going to be flexible in looking at modifications, updates and recommendations on health and safety to keep everybody as virus-free and as safe?
Of course, I think both. I think we're going to have to, I agree with you. I mean, the entire situation that our nation is in, we're going to have to be flexible within. But if you look within this document, so, and I think this does actually tie into exactly what Tracy was asking, like, what are we doing within the classroom and
But
what?
wait, I don't want to, and we can go there. I absolutely want to talk about that, but I want to stay where we are right now real quick though. Because
I was just going to use that as an example, but
yeah, and I know, but I can only think in one frame right now. So if we're following these guidance documents and we're recognizing that as the situation in our nation and our community and specifically Volusia County changes we should be following and we should be receiving updated information so that we can make the best plan, right? So what I'm hearing though is that the only flexible plan that we are following in Volusia County is the reopening plan. But the guiding documents that we use to write the reopening plan, we're taking one snapshot in time and now we're not revisiting them. Because I would suggest that if the American Academy of Pediatrics had a position paper at the beginning of the pandemic, and then the Florida chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics specific to Florida came out with a position stating that we should not reconvene face-to-face in our schools until we have 14 days of, wouldn't we want to be following the most updated recommendations from the authorities in this area?
Okay, so I have two responses to that, but I do want to fact check myself on something really quick. So I'm going to put mute, fact check myself, and then I'm going to come back if that's okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I thought I understood something and I did. So I just wanted to make sure. What we have control over, and let's start there, what we as a group, because as a district and as a school board, I think we can all appreciate that we've been put between a rock and a hard place as far as we were given a directive to write a reopening plan that involved opening brick and mortar by August 31st. So we pushed the date back as part of that to August 31st, which is what happened. Within that, we took two documents, the CDC guidelines and the American Association of Pediatrics guidelines. And you mentioned that the reopening plan, and I think we've talked about this before, as minor changes occur and as we get updates, we have updated that plan. Our superintendent updates the board at every board meeting with any adjustments that have been made within that plan that are not substantive. Now, if we're going to make big major changes that are substantive, like we're going to not have brick and mortar schools, then that would have to be reapproved by the Department of Education. And I think we know what would happen there because I watch the news too.
Well, I don't think, I'm not sure I do know, but let's keep going.
Okay, well, I'm going off of other counties who have made that decision and have had that denied. So
there are also other counties who have made that decision and they are moving forward with it. I mean, Miami-Dade, Palm Beach County.
So they're in, and if we want to go there, that's fine. They're in a different situation than we are. But if we look at, if they're looking at the numbers, and we can debate this, but the real debate, Elizabeth, is up in Tallahassee as far as this goes. And as far as the decision making that we've been charged to do. So what I'm saying is we used the CDC guidelines, we used the American Association of Pediatrics. If we limit it to one document, and I'm going to just read this. I know you don't want to go there yet, but I'm going to read this. Within the CDC guidelines, it says spacing seating desks should be at least 6 feet apart when feasible. It doesn't give a hard must be 6 feet apart. Now, beyond that, We've bought the plexiglass shields. We're providing face masks. We wrote a face mask policy requiring face masks when social distancing is not possible. And that is all within our policy.
So let me make sure that I understand. So then you're telling me that in classrooms, it is okay for principals to tell their teachers, you have to fit 24 desks in this classroom, whether they are appropriately spaced or not. And then the expectation is every student in that class will wear a face mask for the entire duration of their time in that class.
Per policy, when social distancing is not possible, they wear utilize the shield, wear the face mask. That's our policy. Now, are you telling me that that has happened?
I'm telling you that we have principals that are telling their teachers that they need to put 24 to 25 desks in a classroom. There is no way that they can appropriately meet any kind of social distancing. They're like 2 feet apart at the most. So then the expectation in that classroom is that children will not enter without a face mask, and they will keep that face mask on for the duration of the class period.
That is what policy 503 says.
So then if you are, and I don't want to get away from the point that I was trying to make before, and the point that I was trying to make before is that if we're going to use guidance from these two groups, the CDC and the American Association of Pediatrics, how do we cherry pick the parts that we want to put in our plan because they are easier or we're more able to implement them and not look at every piece of guidance that they're offering? And
So that makes a powerful assumption that we're looking at it and going, well, what's the easiest for us to do? And I think that's a real powerful assumption on everybody's part, because the group that was convened was not tasked with pick the easiest things. They were tasked with, let's write a plan that's in the best interest of our students and our employees, that for their health and safety. Now, are there parameters within our school district that are, like, you think about a hallway. I can't go back and change a hallway that was built and retrofitted in 1920 by the start of school. But what we have done, and you pointed this out before, directional signage, we have signage that's up. We have principals who have gone through their buildings, put up arrows, thought about transitions of classes and how they're going to mitigate that to the best of the ability. But even with, my point is, even within the CDC guidelines, it says when feasible.
So, but Rachel, let me just point this out to you. Everything with good planning, using strategy, things are feasible. But you tell me if that is what the mindset is. Can we do staggered transitions in our secondary schools so that we can afford appropriate social distancing during transition? I think that we probably could, but it would take planning and it would take a strategy. So I cannot support the language where practicable, because I believe we can solve these problems.
So then you can't support the CDC guidelines, because that's what it says within.
Go ahead and say what you need to say. I'll wait.
If we can't support where practicable, then we can't support the CDC guidelines, because that is what they say.
But I don't believe that you're supporting them right now. I think what's happening is that we are looking at what is going to be the easiest to implement. And yes, it is a powerful assumption, but this statement that I'm making is based off the emails and the communication that I am receiving every day from the teachers and staff who are in our schools, who are being told essentially, you have to compromise what we've been telling you all along, because this is what we have to do. We have no other options. I've got a member of the bargaining team right now who has been asked to move rooms just so they can put more desks in there. And it's not safe. It's not reasonable. And you talk about, so you mentioned the executive order a moment ago. You mentioned the executive order. So we have to convene and we have to do all these things, in the executive order by the end of the month. That's exactly right. For students, we talked about this the other day. There is nothing in the executive order that says that the teachers have to be on campus. So again, we're picking and choosing different parts of different documents, and we're using them to suit our purpose in the time. All we've ever asked for is to put procedures and policies in place that keep everybody safe. And when we start to collapse those or walk them back because things get hard or difficult, that's not right. And if we want to look at the American Association of Pediatrics, we ought to look at all of those recommendations. And those include the 14 days that I mentioned before. But I want to just also put this out there. Patricia Boswell made a statement to Ms. Cuthbert on Tuesday night about the 6 feet. And her statement was to the effect that if we want to stop the spread of the virus, the 6 feet guideline is how we have to do it. So in our schools, if we want to stop the spread of this virus, we have to stay with the 6 feet. Otherwise, we're going to start school and shortly have to shut it down. And I know you don't want that, and I certainly don't want that.
I need to also add,
Can I ask this? If Mr. West wants to contribute, could he please turn his camera on and speak into the camera? I really would like to engage with what he would want to share, but I'd like to see him and be able to hear him clearly, please.
That's why we have a
Mr. West.
policy.
Did you hear what he said?
No, I didn't.
I
Okay.
didn't either.
That's why we have a mask policy.
And yours is below your nose right now, so is that working? I mean, it's 3 weeks into this, right? We're we're 3 weeks into this. We've got really nothing. And
I
so
think if we compared this to what our expectations of teachers are, so your expectation for teachers is to maintain rigor, to maintain everything at the level pre-pandemic in an environment that pre-pandemic would have been fine, but now we're saying we're holding them to no exceptions. We're not picking and choosing from the evaluation. We're not picking and choosing from our expectations of how they teach, but we're going to pick and choose from the documents that keep everybody safe. And so I think that if you were going to hold teachers to a standard of keeping their rigor with their education, we would never stand by and allow a teacher to just do her teaching on the day you walk into the classroom for evaluations. So basically it's like there's an elephant in the room right now and we're not going to talk about it. And the elephant in the room is we cannot separate these people because it's financially not feasible. We can't separate kids because it's not financially feasible.
I think we have been talking about it. And I do think, I respectfully disagree that we're trying to replicate exactly what our normal school year is. I think the whole point of this reopening plan is that it is not the normal. We've gone through, we've agreed to I went through last night and did an analysis of the things that we've agreed to within this plan. And where we are stuck is on whether we put the guidelines within the reopening plan or we follow one document, which is CDC. And that is the language that we're stuck on. So if what you're saying is what is in the reopening plan we don't like, then we're going to be stuck there because we can't go back. We're not going to move from following the reopening plan.
So let me just jump in real fast because you made a really important statement that resonated with me just there, Rachel. And you said that if anyone thinks that we are going to be able to replicate the normal, we are not. We are in complete and total agreement with you there. There is nothing about what's getting ready to happen that will be traditional or the same that we've ever done before. And we've always had that mindset and we've had that understanding going into this. But when we started this entire process, the district said there are no impacts. So how can you say that and say we don't believe there are any impacts to to the terms and conditions of work and then make that statement at the same time?
I said, I want to clarify what I said because it's not what I said. What I said,
the impact thing.
Okay, what I said as far as, are there impacts to school? No, when we were talking specifically contract language, that's what we were talking about. Are there things that impact our current contract and the way that contract is written? That is what we were referring to then. Are there things within here that we felt like were impacted, or that the daily, what school is going to look like when you walk through the door, are impacted? Of course there are. Last year, kids weren't wearing masks. Last year, we didn't have plexiglass shields. Last year, we didn't have directional signage up from how we move through campuses. Last year, there were more students on campus. We have campuses that are going to have 50% of the students on campus that they had last year. So if that is the case, we have the same amount of 50% less kids. So, I mean, that is where we're going from. Do you want me to continue going through the issues and where we're stuck, or we can keep going?
So I would like, I mean, I know where we're stuck. So I'd like to see if you're done with the research that you did on the safety protocols, because I'd like to hear the rest of that. And I know I interrupted you when you were sharing it. So I want to make sure that we hear all of that before we move on. But I would like to see the response to the counter that we presented yesterday. Okay,
our response to the counter is that we would revert back to our counter, which I will send to you.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say then is we're back to the way we were at the beginning of the week, playing the game about we're going to just revert to what we had. Okay, we're going to go ahead and ask for a caucus then.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to ask for a caucus. We're probably going to need about at least 20 minutes. So if you want to send that, we will meet you back at, well, let's just make it 11:30.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Give me a minute.
Yep.
There you go.
Okay, I think we're all back.
Are we?
Yeah.
Are we still recording?
You turn your, mute it.
We're live.
Mine, it's-
We're live on. Do you want to check and make sure we're live?
We are.
Okay, we are.
Tracy, are we still recording on Zoom? There we go.
You are now.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you for that time. We were able to caucus and so coming back, I just want to, I guess, pick up where I left off, and I want to just, well, first of all, is there a way that your table could turn their cameras on? Or could we at least see who is in the room with you? Could you maybe move your,
I can tell you who's in the room with me.
can we
I'm not
see, can
sure.
we see everybody?
What's the purpose?
Well, I just, you know, it's just very difficult to have a very serious conversation without being able to see folks.
Elizabeth, is your team going to turn their cameras on?
Sure, my team, turn your cameras on.
All right, then.
Let's all turn our cameras on.
Okay.
You're good.
Remember, my camera doesn't work, Elizabeth.
You want my camera coming?
Elizabeth, did you hear me?
Yeah, I did, Barbara, yep.
Okay.
Elizabeth, and I don't have a camera on my laptop either.
Okay, thanks, Beth.
I know.
We got her here. Okay.
Is Mr. Penley there?
He's here.
Can we, I can't see him.
I can show you he's here.
All right, there he is, very good. Okay, that's nice, because at least we can all see each other when we're having the conversation, which is the way, you know, we do most of our
Is
business,
Tracy
right?
going to turn hers on?
Sure.
Okay.
So, so as the others are turning on their cameras, I appreciate that. It's nice to actually have everybody like we would sort of in a normal bargaining time. So I want to just say this. I'm disappointed that we seem to be back to where we started, where we ended at the end of last week and where we were on Monday. At this point, my calculations show that as of
Well,
yesterday,
I just want to say that well, wait a minute, because that's
no,
inaccurate.
because it was, Rachel, I'm going to ask to be able to finish everything that I say, and then I will absolutely stop talking and allow you to respond. Thank you.
Okay.
So as of yesterday, we had 31 and a half hours involved in this process. And I have one signed MOA for the early release, and we had made some minor progress in a couple different areas. When we came together yesterday, I had very high hopes that we were going to continue the forward progress that we had started on Wednesday. But to me, based on the conversation this morning about the failure to counter the desire to revert back to previous language, and again, yesterday with the retirement incentive, the desire to revert back to the prior proposal, it is very evident to me, and it is quite disappointing to all of our members of the bargaining team and the folks who have been watching and tuning in with hopes of seeing some progress, that that the district bargaining team has no desire to roll up their sleeves and work collaboratively to find solutions to the issues that we are facing with reopening. It makes me again wonder, like we did last week when we asked the question of your ability and authority to make decisions. So if you have the authority to make these decisions, and you as a bargaining team, not you specifically as Rachel Hazel, but you as a team, Why would we have such hurdles and obstacles when we're having discussions about keeping people safe, particularly the employees that are working in our schools for you who are on the call, people that you know what they do every single day for the children that come to your schools. And district level folks, the same goes for the people who work in your departments. These are fundamental basic rights to a safe and secure work environment that we are asking for. So if it is not within the authority of the people who are on the team, then we are left with no other understanding, no other expectation than the members of the school board themselves have not given you the authority or have told you specifically, do not prioritize the health and safety of the educational professionals and the children of this district. Because we have had conversation after conversation about trying to make sure that our environment is safe. And all we continue to see is a failure to prioritize that need, as evidenced even by the conversation that we had before bargaining started this morning. The making teacher no air conditioning for 3 hours. It's 90 degrees outside the minute you walk out of your house at 8 o'clock in the morning. And these folks are captive in an environment that is closed in. Most of the windows in our schools don't even open. And we can't make the decision to allow them to work remotely when the air condition doesn't work. That is reprehensible. If we consider the people who are going to be carrying out the tasks that we are asking them to do, why do we always put them last? I'll also continue with our facilities. Our schools and our classrooms are filthy dirty. We have been posting the pictures. We're not creating these things. We're not going downstairs in our building and creating situations and falsifying, situations and taking pictures of them. These pictures are coming from your schools. These pictures are coming from classrooms in some of your buildings where there is mold and mildew and filth and trash and dead bugs. Is that okay? No, it's not. But yet we're going to march our folks, continue to march the adults in there and bring the students in there on the 31st, and we're going to say it's okay. The plan that has been created contradicts itself in many different spots. You have a mask policy that is toothless. And we've even seen evidence throughout this process that folks at this bargaining table can't even maintain their mask in the appropriate way. And I believe that we are misrepresenting this opening plan to the parents and the community, and we're compromising the safety of all of the children that we're going to bring back. And so who's going to be accountable? Who is going to be accountable when this fails and fails massively and somebody gets hurt and somebody ends up in the hospital? Who's accountable? Is it you? Or is it the school board members? Because until there is a desire of this team to work with collaboratively to set out some basic fundamental principles to keep our people safe, this is headed for disaster. And it has always been our mission to prioritize health and safety. And yet we were not able to get this done with you guys because you just want to take the minimum standards for the folks that are doing the work, but you're expecting the highest return. It doesn't make sense. I'm done.
Okay. Do you want me to respond?
It's up to you, whatever you want to respond with. I think I've said all that I can in this moment. I don't know how I can say my message anymore.
Okay. Well, I do think that there were some statements and liberties said within there. For instance, you said, we're back to the plan that we started with on Monday. We had adjusted language as late as yesterday when we sent you that proposal. So what we sent yesterday and what I reviewed yesterday had changes and additions to what you put in. I don't feel the need to revisit the authority conversation other than to say, we were issued an emergency order. We wrote a reopening plan that falls within that emergency order, which was approved by our school board. and approved by the Department of Education. We have the authority to make decisions that fall within the guidelines of both of those. We can't make decisions outside of that, and we can't make decisions that are going to put us, and financial is part of that as well. We've offered $1 million worth of leave, $1 million worth of leave. And so to say that we're not here at the table working collaboratively for all of those hours you've named, we've all been here too. And we have gone back and we have looked at what you said. In fact, we added 17 things to the MOU straight from your language that we've agreed upon with no questions asked. We can't agree to go above $1 million threshold for leave. That's simply just not possible. So while we've stayed away from, we've as a team preferred to stay away from the blame game, although I feel like that's the direction we're taking now. Whether you blame me personally or you blame the board or you blame the team, whoever, I know Tracy has said before, she wants to know who to be mad at. Be mad at the ones who are putting down these orders that we must follow. But that's my response to that. I don't know where you want to go from here. If you're saying you're done, we've given you an offer that is supported by our board, that is supported and reflects the reopening plan implementation that was written in the best interest of students and employees. That's our offer.
So what you, thank you, Rachel, very much for that. So what I heard you say there was that you've been authorized by the board to agree to everything that falls within the reopening plan. So that helps me understand who's making the decisions. It's not you, it's the members of the school board. So that's where we'll focus our efforts going forward, I suppose. And it's very interesting that you bring up finances. So I guess what is essentially being said is that dollars are more important than safety. Dollars are more important than our people. And so that's acknowledged as well. I have acknowledged that there were some minor things that were given to us. I appreciate that. But putting in contractual language, Article 15C, really isn't that big of a lift. We appreciated that it was actually in there when we talked about building a bridge back, but that wasn't that big of a stretch. But I do acknowledge that it was put in there. So thank you so much for that. I'm not sure what we have left to say today based on the fact that, you know, the proposal that we sent over yesterday, the response was to revert back to your original proposal, because we're not going to bargain with ourselves. There are some other things that we want to talk about. So I'd like to talk a little bit before we end our time here today about Volusia Live. I'd like to talk about some new aspects of Volusia Live. For example, the Volusia Live, gosh, what is it called? Let me get my document here that was sent to me. The Volusia Live moderator, the Volusia Live buddy. So it's my understanding that on Volusia, and so for teachers that are simultaneously teaching face-to-face and Volusia Live, they've been told that they need to assign Volusia Live moderator as a job for a student. Can you talk to me a little bit about that, please?
I don't have any context on it either.
Elizabeth, this is Dr. Ramondo. Oh, I'm sorry. Elizabeth, this is Dr. Ramondo. To let you know, this is, I'm going to need to seek some more information to be able to engage in conversation regarding this aspect of this, of Volusia Live.
Why is that, Dr. Ramondo?
Because this is the first, not that the first that I'm hearing of it, so that I can engage in conversation with those that probably proposed this. I don't have that in front of me.
Okay, and you know, Dr. Ramondo, I respect you very much, so I'm not trying to be fresh with you, but here's what I need to tell you. I guess I just lost Rachel, I don't know where she went. Our teachers throughout the district are training, and they've been training since Wednesday on Volusia Live. The training document was sent to me that says everybody has a buddy. Assign Volusia Live moderator as a job for a student. Student can sit next to the laptop to be the liaison for the teacher in Volusia Live class. So are you telling me that members of the bargaining team don't know what the training expectations are for Volusia Live, and yet we're trying to bargain these impacts?
The training itself is the platform that was provided for everyone to take. I'm going to be honest in this one that I am taking that training this evening. I will understand that, but that is a suggestion that's in there.
No, ma'am.
I will have more context for that.
No, ma'am. Dr. Raimondo, this is what they're being told that they must do. None of these trainings are suggestions. This is what they're being trained and told that they will do. So this again, this is my whole point, friends. This is my whole point. The things that we are talking about at the table, that we are trying to set forth as basic principles for doing business, you've got complete and total separate things going on at the school sites. Our folks are being asked to do things that are outrageous. When is it ever acceptable to have a student using an employee's device? We go to professional standards over those kind of cases. You've got a training document right here that's telling your professionals, principals, you tell me if you think this is good, and I don't want to engage your team inappropriately, sorry. You tell me if you think that's right, to let a student work on a teacher's computer during class for the purposes of being a moderator for Volusia Live. In any other year, you'd find yourself sitting in an investigation at OPS. How is that okay?
Elizabeth, again, I believe that the document, and I'd have to review it, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's not in front of me. I'm going to need to look at it, and I do believe it says that that is as a suggestion. I'm not sure that it says that it is a must, that teachers must. So if you indulge me a little bit to be able to look at that document so that I am able to engage in a conversation and answer your questions related to this.
Certainly, Dr. Raimondo, but what is the message that we now need to tell 4,000 teachers who've had this training? What do we tell them now? It's a suggestion?
Again, I would need to review that document to ensure that what I am saying to you is correct and that message is clear to our teachers. So I am asking again for you to provide me that little levity of time so that I can get that document and make sure that I am informed, well informed of what it says, take the platform myself as a teacher and be able to reference back to that so that we can engage in a true conversation regarding the correct response for teachers regarding this moderator.
And again, yes, Dr. Raimondo, of course I would do that, of course.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We just have folks that are, it's like mixed messages. It's like mixed messages, and they just counter to everything we know about best practices for teaching. But it's coming to them like it's doctrine. And nobody wants to say, okay, Mr. Principal, or like, okay, say I work for you, Miss Polite, I'm an elementary teacher. I'm not going to go to you as my principal and say, Miss Polite, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to be insubordinate. Because this expectation is really is very, I can't imagine that anybody that was a teacher put that on there. So I don't know where it came from, but I'm bringing it to you because this is what our friends, your friends too, because you've worked with these people for years. You used to be classroom teachers. Every one of you principals on here used to be a classroom teacher. I mean, these are the people that we care about. And this is what they're being told to do. That's my whole point. And I guess, and I know I was very excited a moment ago. I get excited when I think that my people that I care about are going to be hurt and harmed. But that's just one example
Elizabeth,
of things that are happening.
If you'll give me a moment, and I'm sorry that I interrupted you. I want you to understand one thing. Our position as a district is never to send a mixed message to our teachers. And I understand what that document is saying. But again, like I said, if you'll let me indulge in that particular platform and be able to download that document, you will have a robust response from our side.
Okay, well, while you're looking at that, could I give you another couple things to look at too, please?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, so would you please look into PE teachers? Because there is another document that has been sent out and is incorporated into the training that everybody's doing this week, that is asking PE teachers to take their computers outside and walk around to try to find a Wi-Fi signals and outside and include Volusia Live Kids. I don't know how that makes, and certainly I'm going to just say, since you didn't know about the other one, you know about that one either. Because again, who's making this stuff up? I mean, I don't know. You don't have to answer that question. You know, and I mean, it's and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. So maybe for the purpose, I don't know, maybe we break early and allow you folks to take a look at the training information that's been pushed out and become fully aware of the expectations and the things that they're being asked to do through the life, because they are unbelievable.
So can I
don't
ask
know.
another question? When the administrator comes up with these plans, because we've allowed all the administrators to come up with their own plans, are they submitting them to make sure they're in compliance with everything? Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
and so we would like a copy of all of those as well when they're submitted. And so then who's giving feedback on this is a no, this is a go, that type of thing?
Okay. With the plans that have taken place, we've actually met with our principals. We've had them have peer conversations. We have talked them through all of the particular aspects of each of the plans. And what we're doing as a district as well is actually supporting our principals, visiting the schools, walking the plans, making suggestions. But one of the biggest things that our principals are doing are bringing the teachers to the table and having them look at each aspect of the plan, every single section, and having them walk and impart their understanding, their suggestions, and it's becoming a school-wide plan with voice from the teachers. So
not that one, not what I just shared.
Not that you're talking about the training plans, because those are their Canvas courses and everything that's in there, the site-based specific plans per school. And I can say that
like
because I visited some schools, Tracy, where I saw one principal in particular, and I'm just using her as an example, not to say that she's the only one, but she actually held specific sessions with her principals, and they were called just reopening chats. And it was directed by the teachers, delivering input, walking the plan, making their suggestions. Hey, you know what? Let's question this and let's change this. Let's make this specific to us. It was the teacher buy-in. It became their plan.
Well, I appreciate that there's been teacher buy-in, but there has to be a gatekeeper, and the union is the gatekeeper, because our teachers don't realize the impacts and what is a bargainable issue. So they can't make decisions for the union and for the contract and everyone that's in the bargaining unit unilaterally. So my point is we'd like to see any of those plans that have been completed, that got the check, okay, you're good to go. And so we can try to make sure they are in compliance with everything and didn't give away or undermine any kind of language that we currently have, or agree to any impacts that we have not.
Thank you, Tracy.
And then there's one other thing, if we could check on, you know, one other item that I've heard recently about the expectation when students are disciplined is they're just going to be placed in Volusia Live. Like if you're in school or out of school, have you heard that? So if I'm naughty, if I'm brick and mortar and I'm naughty and I get, I don't know, 5 days of out of school suspension, then my expectation is I reconvene in my classroom through Volusia Live. Would you please check on that? Because that certainly doesn't seem to be appropriate.
Yes, ma'am. I will look into those. Are there any other aspects of Volusia Live you'd like for me to
Well,
look at?
probably not in this moment, but I'm sure I'll get some more things. And as you become more familiar, then, you know, we can continue the conversation. But that just, I think, you know, for the purposes of trying to make sure we understand all these impacts that our folks are going to be facing, these are the conversations that I've been wanting to have with you guys so that we could set some parameters and agreements based on what our folks are going to face when the kids come back on the 31st, you know? And I don't think that's unreasonable. And I know that our people are asking and seeking clarification on the expectations. So I'm really glad in a way that we kind of just sit and talk about these very specific things so that we could do this work. So is there anything else that we know? Because I think if there's no counter, we're not going to bargain with ourselves. But thank you for listening to the concerns that I brought up about Volusia Live. But then we probably need to just schedule some more meetings for next week before we depart, because we're not, obviously not done. And I'm kind of disappointed that we weren't able to preserve this afternoon time like we had discussed originally, because we could have taken a break and then reconvened this afternoon. And I would like to know, if I could know today, what the expectations will be when the air condition is out, because during this time that we've had together, portable air condition is out at Blue Lake. So, you know, we've moved our ESE folks, our speech language pathologist and VAT, they're over at Blue Lake. AC's out in those portables. And so as the day goes by, it gets hotter and hotter. So if I could, by the end of the day, maybe you guys will have a decision on how long people are allowed to sit without air conditioning. Of course, January would be different than, well, we'd have heat then maybe, I don't know. All right, what's your availability on Monday?
Cabinet and more.
Hold on one moment. Do,
$3:30, Christy.
I don't know if you're talking, I can't hear.
Sorry, we're looking at calendars.
Hey, Elizabeth, I also thought we were going to get numbers on the students to work through the displacements and those types of things.
Do you have those final numbers today, Rachel?
What numbers are you looking for specifically?
So we had talked about once the students that were enrolled in Volusia Online were pulled from the rosters. So how many?
How many are at each site?
Did we ask for it site by site?
Oh,
Or do you just need, I mean, I have numbers of how many are in each. I can.
I'm trying to clarify. Tracy, did we ask for them?
I think we need it side by side. We were just asking for them as a whole to get some idea.
I
But
send that to you right now.
what do we have on Tuesday?
Elizabeth, if I might say something, because
Sure.
the discussion was about implementing the design language, and we've got questions coming in both from administration and from on, you know, the word being out there that people are going to be, just give them some information.
We,
We,
Go ahead, we're gonna
This
do
is
it.
Mark. I would just say we're going to follow the
Where'd
same.
he go?
I'm right here.
Yep.
We
Couldn't
we
see.
would follow the same displacement process that we have in the past, but whether they're looking at the numbers for that.
How many openings do you have currently at Volusia Online?
That's a floating number because as of today, they're hiring. We're hiring as of up to today. We have. I'm looking at Deb, trying to think about. We had a number of allocations that have been added to them fairly recently. So I would have to get you those numbers of exactly how many. The total.
But you're still hiring for VOL. So
Even
potentially someone who might be displaced from a site could be placed with VOL.
so that's why we've not talked.
Well,
We've not talked about this placement
right.
site. I don't know where that's coming from.
We're at the displacement pieces after the kids come back and have actually, and we base that number off of the 9-day count from students. Then that's when we follow the displacement process. That's my understanding, what we've done in the past and is our contract language.
So if there's a principal out there who, because you know, we still have a critical teacher shortage, believe it or not. And so if, right?
In some areas, yeah.
Yeah, so we put that on the back burner, but so if there's openings and we have a hiring freeze right now, which is, I understand why. I do. Principal need to, so I'm just trying to make sense of if I have 2 academic coaches who are certified K-6, but I have a gap in 3rd and 4th grade, should I be moving folks around internally at this point in time, or should I be waiting for numbers and the 9-day count? What should I be doing?
So that's part of the conversations that we're having with principals on an ongoing basis about what they need to look at with the projected number of students that they have coming to their school. That is option 1 and 2. They're going to be showing up on the first day, which is the 31st. And then the process that happens after that, that involves the district. So what we're asking principals to do right now is to look at, with the allocations that we have given them, we're not cutting any allocations from them during this until the actual after the 9-day count. So they are keeping their allocations. But what we're asking them to do is to, if they have, let's say, vacancies based on either VOL appointments, or even if they just have a vacancy that they have had for months, to look to see how teachers can fill in those gaps. And we know the numbers are going to be lower at the schools than what we're projecting. So that's kind of what we're asking them to take a look at right now.
Okay. So last year when we started, and Mr. West, you wouldn't know, but Rachel, you remember, last year when we started, there was a directive given that no classroom would be without a certified teacher. And so we had folks that were in support roles, not support bargaining unit, but in academic support roles, that were asked to step into the role of the teacher that again, or are we going to, or is there another process? Because we're looking at.
I think the answer is a little of those who, and we've approved to hire subs if they have a vacancy and put those subs in place. So I've seen both models used depending on the school and the status of the school and where they are. But just as late as this morning, I talked to 2 principals who were going to be putting subs in who have long-term subs. And actually, the subs that they're using are certified teachers who may end up being hired in that position should that allocation hold.
Okay, thank you.
So I think that's a little different situation, understanding that when we did this last year, based on, I mean, we knew our numbers, we didn't think our numbers would fluctuate as much as what we're anticipating numbers fluctuating this year. So that decision was made because we wanted to provide that consistency, but knowing that numbers are going to fluctuate, and we weren't in a position where we had a hiring freeze. So with this hiring freeze, we have people out there who are certified teachers who under normal circumstances we would have hired. And we're able to put them in that sub, and the principals are hoping that they can transfer them right into the classroom. Into a permanent, they'll be in the classroom, but into a permanent position once the freeze is lifted.
Joy, did that cover the question? You're muted.
I'm not sure. It's still not clear. They're just, I appreciate the answer.
Okay. All right, so what did we find for Monday?
We have 12 to 1 and we have 3 to 4.
That's it?
On Monday.
On Monday.
So is that reasonable? I don't know that we're going to get anything done in an hour.
Okay.
So we take both of those
Can
also.
we have a few minutes to look at calendars and discuss, please?
Sure. Why don't we caucus and reconvene with 12? Why don't we reconvene at 12:20? Is that enough time?
Okay, yeah. And
All right,
we'll,
so let's caucus then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody go over to the caucus room.
Oh, yeah, okay. Is that on now? Sorry. Sorry, I was talking. All right, we have three times that will work. This was almost as challenging as before. We have Monday 11:30 to 1.
So
Tuesday.
11:30 to 1.
Is that on now? Sorry, I was talking. All right, we have.
Sorry.
I think they were replaying what I was saying. Can you? It's just me now, right? Okay. Tuesday 11:30 to 2. And Friday 8 to 9:30.
Eight to 9:30.
Can we go back over those again?
Monday 11:30 to 1. Friday 11:30 to 2. Friday 8 to 9:30.
Thank you.
All right. And so that will be how we continue to proceed. All right, and I guess that's what we'll do then.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.